So just to get these two dumb jokes out of the way, the title of Anemone, the newest album from St. Lucia-born, New Zealand residing singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer Manu Francois isn't a reference to that one scene from Finding Nemo.
You live in what kind of home?
Nor is it a reference to that Daniel Day-Lewis comeback film of last year that nobody saw coming, and apparently nobody bothered to watch given its middling reviews and underperformance in the US box office. The background behind the album's title is twofold. It's a genus of flowering plants that aren't indigenous to Antarctica, Australia, or New Zealand. And according to the ancient Latin narrative poem Metamorphoses, it's a plant created by the Greek goddess Aphrodite from the blood of her dead lover, Adonis, and her own tears. Conceptually, Manu builds his album on the non-existence of a plant in his current home country that just might be the perfect symbol of love. In particular, a love so unconditional, it's worth holding on to, as it could never be experienced with anyone else. Over the course of 8 tracks and 31 minutes, Manu explores this incomparable brand of pure, passionate love through varying musical styles, vocal performances, and subject matter. Apart from a guest producer for the final 2 songs, Anemone plays out like a stage performance, with his host front and center and heart on his sleeve. The album kicks off with Spaceships, whose main melody is a delightful blend of spirited guitar strums and steady snare drums. When Manu delivers his lines, the beat literally spaces out into a more spacey and ethereal passage that effectively embodies the song's theme of partaking on a voyage through space. Before the main melody resumes, we hear these militaristic drums and the pitch shifting of Manu's voice to sound like it's coming through a megaphone. Both song elements add a sense of urgency to the missions of Manu and his potential love interest, as they're meant to spend their lives together and not all alone in the cold darkness of space. The pleasantries continue on the track Crystalline, which I must say does a great job of transporting its listeners back to Earth, a beat to be exact, in its first few seconds. From here, we're treated to a gorgeous guitar melody that I must warn you will stay rent-free in your brain after you've heard it, and some genuinely beautiful lyrics centered on Manu's ruminations on how bright and colorful his life was when he was with his now estranged partner. Despite its title, Lonely Star doesn't involve Manu jumping back into his spaceship to look for love like he did on the opening track. Instead, over the album's first electronic instrumental, he encourages his former partner and himself to continue living their lives and shining their lights until they eventually reunite. Upon first listen, the somewhat dignified vocal timbre Manu adopts on this track was rather unexpected. But it did grow on me, and in an odd way, I admire how it makes him sound, for lack of a better term, wise beyond his years. The album takes a significantly dark turn on the following track, Hurricane, which features a tense guitar and drum instrumental and a theatrical, metal-inspired vocal performance by Manu. Content-wise, this is the most dense and ambiguous song on the record, as it could be viewed as this vicious war of words between the parties of an unstable relationship, or a warning/note to self to not let your vices, failures, or deep-rooted anger define you, the way you live your life, and how you treat others. I will say that the Maury chants that bookend each line on the verses was a nice touch. Building off the reference to heaven on the spoken word outro of Hurricane, we get the track Above the Clouds, which isn't entirely about heaven, despite the cloudy opening moment of Manu's beat and his song intro about a world with endless sunshine. Instead, Manu raps, for the first and only time on the album, about the heaven on earth he wants to share with his true love. I truly appreciate his understanding of the word commitment on this track, since his journey he wants to embark on will be anything but endlessly smooth sailing. And sonically, I love how the beat switches to a more nocturnal tempo when Manu sings a hook. Speaking of nocturnal, You and Me has the vibe of a 90s R&B/Quiet Storm song designed for, let's just say, late night intimacy. For some strange reason, the track's production always reminds me of Timbaland's work on the genuine classic Pony every time I hear it. And while there isn't anything overtly sexual about Manu's lyrics, it's the idea of risking it all to achieve emotional and physical satisfaction that gives the song its much needed sensuality. I mean, Manu even references Adam, Eve, and the Forbidden Tree, for God's sake. On the final leg of the album, we're treated to guest producer Black Winter's 2 electronic instrumentals, each with a low-key but still head-nod-inducing drop attached, by way of the tracks Naked Flame and Reality Now. The former is the downbeat of the two, both in musical and vocal presentation. Over its relaxed, contemplative production, Manu reintroduces and reworks the visual metaphor of Lonely Star to describe himself as someone whose shining light does little to hide his internal scars, causing him to burn from the inside despite God being behind his face, love that line, and appear emotionally volatile towards his romantic prospect. And yet Manu concludes the album on a hopeful note with Reality Now. Similar to Lonely Star, he imparts some words of wisdom to his former partner and himself. For the final time on the album, he focuses on inner light, but instead of framing it as a beacon for emotional connection, he portrays it as a torch that one must use to move forward through the darkness, away from the pain, regret, and heartbreak, and towards a life they rightfully deserve to live. In addition to Black Winter's appropriately heartfelt production, what I really love about this track is the subtle distinction between fantasy and reality resonant in Manu's lyrics. Though it's possible for us to live our respective dream life, we must be willing to let go of unrealistic, fantastical expectations of ourselves and the people we choose to spend our lives with. And we must learn to be more self-compassionate, even if the fear of remaining a lonely star or the threat of becoming a hurricane seems daunting at times. In short, out of blood, tears, and most importantly, love, we ourselves become anemones. Incomparable ones at that. It's interesting that this album dropped in late December of last year, as, given the timing of this review, I'd easily recommend this to those looking for something new to listen to for the upcoming Valentine's Day weekend. But its concept is so insightful, the production is so memorable, and the songwriting and vocal performances by its hosts are great across the board. This album far surpasses mere holiday music consumption. As an official introduction to Manu's discography, I was thoroughly impressed by Anemone. And whether you're new to his music or not, I highly recommend giving it a listen, which is why I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on Manu Francois' Anemone. And that's my review of Manu Francois' latest album, which is now available on Spotify and Soundcloud. If you checked it out, feel free to let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section to this video. And yeah, it's a wrap.